Hey there! Back again with some more Minecraft today, and you may have noticed that last week no videos went out, and that's because of events during that week, events which I'm going to talk about in this episode. Now, today's episode is it's going to be a voiceover, and the reason for that is I actually recorded the episode for last week. All I needed was to edit it. But because of things that happened, I did not feel that it still represented what I wanted or needed to say. So therefore I decided to scrap the episode. However, the footage of it I'd still like to use. So what we're going to do today is I am going to talk about what happened and what is going to happen. Give you the reason for why no episodes or videos went out last week and why I've been so quiet. And while I do that, we're going to watch whatever happened in this video. May have to change the speed a little bit if I talk too long, but we'll see what happens. But anyways, we're going to get started, so let's get on with it. Alright, so as I said, I had actually recorded last week's episode, but after the news of a Wednesday morning, my time, I simply could not muster myself. The last long while I've been struggling a lot with hopelessness. And that, combined with the news of that morning, utterly crushed me. If you're unsure what I'm referring to, because you're watching it later or something, I'm talking about the American election. So, what did I do? Well, I got up in the morning, as I usually do, and I made ready for work, got everything ready. I basically just needed to put on clothes and I'd be out the door. And then I realised what was about to happen, and I gave up. I told Kitty that I was not going to talk, and then I went back to bed. Later, of course, in the day, the news came in that now it was definite, and that only made it worse. I spent the whole day lying in bed, feeling weak and sick, crying myself to sleep. I didn't get up until 6 in the evening, where my intent was to make dinner. I basically sat up. Then after a while I went and turned on the light in the kitchen. And then a couple hours later I actually made the food. But then I got some words. Because of all my relationships, you might remember I have 5. One had already told me that he wasn't going to vote prior because basically he couldn't be asked. And I approached him and asked him to vote, if not for himself, then for my sake. Because this is my future and my happiness at stake. But to that I was told true enough that since the registration had closed, and he hadn't bothered, it was too late. This is when he told me that if I had told him earlier, he might have done it. Might. That's not a good answer, to be honest. In fact, he handled that conversation so bad that I got very upset, and I basically refused to talk. And I must admit, it's hard not to pass blame after what happened Wednesday. Then, on this day, after I had made the food and just sat down, was about to get ready to eat, then another one of my relationships straight up told me that he had actually voted for this tangerine-faced monster. I couldn't believe it. Almost didn't know what to say, so simply asked him why. His response was because he thought that Hillary was going to be arrested by the FBI anyway. And then he followed up with another response, which was because he just wanted the voting over with. To which I answered, wrong answer. He could feel that this was not good, and he begged me not to leave him because of this, like others had. So I told him that I wanted him to know exactly how much he had hurt me. At this point, I was already terrified of going to the States. And now, I can't see myself ever doing it again. Like, even after this horrible nightmare is over, the state is going to be forever changed. It's going to be unsafe ground. So basically, by passing that vote, you had voted to never see me. You have voted that you don't want to be together. His vote might forever cut me off from fully becoming myself, the one I am inside. And it may irreversibly damage my human rights, both in America and in other parts of the world, and even my right to exist for the rest of my lifetime. But more so than anything, this morning's news, well, in my living room, I have a dagger lying on one of my shelves. An ornamental dagger, but a dagger nonetheless, and plenty dangerous. And that morning, I have never felt it call for me so hard, feel so attractive. Because of his vote, because of the result of the election, first in the morning, and now him telling me this, that he straight up voted for him, made me want to kill myself twice in the same day. And honestly, if I hadn't had my pills, which gives me a self-control that is hard to even explain, I don't think I would have made it. What I was feeling was complete and utterly crushed hopelessness and hurt, and I just couldn't take it. It felt like any hope of ever being close to happiness was just extinguished. He realized at this point that it might be a good idea if he just stopped talking and left. So I told him that I didn't want him to leave, nor for me to leave him. He asked if I could forgive him, and so I did. As long as he promised me to think ahead from now on and never hurt me like that ever again. But after this, I just could not muster myself. I could not release videos. I could not make my usual jokes to go along with it. And so I decided that it would probably be a good idea to take a week's hiatus to try and recuperate, try and get back on my feet. And even though I'd already recorded the episode and only needed to edit it, I decided to scrap it because it was not going to work. It was not going to go out on time. It would be delayed by a week, and the tone of the video would be completely off with what happened and how I felt. So I decided to scrap it. But of all the things I talked about in the episode, there was really only one important thing that I wanted to bring up anyway. And that is, on the Monday, the day before the election took place, I had my psychologist visit. And I went there and talked with my psychologist. We talked about some different things, and one of the things was my voice stuff, my vocal training. But also, we talked about this surgeon referral, because he has now sent it, and since then I have heard back. I heard back sometime last week. I can't remember the exact day, but I got my letter. I think it was Thursday, might have been Friday, that I would go and talk with the surgeons on the 20th of January next year. Funnily enough, the exact same date that I got the yes to starting hormone treatment. So, a little bit of a funny coincidence. The anniversary of that, the day my fate was decided. Now, this is not going to be the final thing, because that is, like, at the moment I'm 6 months into my hormone treatment and I need to go through 12 months before I can get surgery. But this is rather to go and talk with the surgeons in order to get more information, because I need that in order to make my decision, because it's not just get this thing done and then it's a dance on roses. It brings things that will help me, but it also makes some things more difficult. There's things you'll have to live with afterwards. For instance, you need to maintain yourself in order to not mess up. Let's leave it at that. But also, once you get the surgery, you lose the ability to produce hormones yourself. And that means that after that point, you are forever bound to hormone supplements. If you stop taking them, then the future of your life is going to be osteoporosis, bone degradation. Not a good way to end your life. And then apart from that, we also talked about one more thing, and that is my desire to become a real mother my own children. And it's something that he hasn't heard from me before, but it is something that is incredibly important to me. As you go through this thing with the clinic, one of the questions you get is, but don't you want to have a kid one day? Very much implying having a kid as your current gender. And you're also asked, is it important for you to stay sexually functioning? Basically be able to get a kid with your assigned equipment? And no. Well, yes, I want a kid. Do I want it that way? No. I want to carry that kid. I want to give birth to that kid. All the other stuff, get it away from me. And talking about that, I had a minor breakdown in the room with him. Basically, I just can't talk about it without starting to cry. And even though I was fighting to hold it back, because if I really start crying I can't talk, then I couldn't stop myself. I started weeping. So that was the only real important thing from that video anyway. And this returns us to today and to the past week again. Because last week, on the first day of this thing, Wednesday morning and Wednesday, as I said, I felt weak and I felt sick. I cried whenever I was awake. I cried myself to sleep. Lied down all day, barely eating anything. And even when I did eat something, I just felt sick. I could barely move. And I could definitely not do my exercises. Which of course doesn't make the whole situation better. Then on the second day, Thursday, I was still weak and in pain. I woke up late, but I still went to work. However, when I tried to do the first part of my exercises that evening, I just couldn't do it. Basically, every time I tried, I just started crying hard, painful tears. So in the end I had to give up and only do my reading exercise, which is not enough. So that of course again only makes it worse. Well, ever since then I have been down, felt crushed, with a constant pain in my chest due to stress. I know this pain, I have felt it before. I felt it while I was awaiting answers from the clinic and feeling the threat of being sent to another country that is dangerous for me for work. And it's now Monday on the week after, and that still hasn't changed. I still feel horrible. Usually when I feel bad and in need like this, in need of being strong, or otherwise persevere, this is when I call upon Emily, the Emily in me, to do so. But lately it's just been very hard for me to summon her. And after Wednesday in particular, it's been nearly impossible. I just have no strength. I'm crushed. I'm lost. I'm hopeless. Now is when I need Emily the most. And now is the time when she's the hardest to find. So, I have made a decision. I've talked about it before, and that is that Emily, she actually has a very big and intricate backstory, but it's all hidden inside my head. I haven't written it down anywhere. It's just in my head. I always intended her backstory to be revealed through a combination of artworks and hints in that artwork. Like both what you directly see in the artwork, but also things in the background, small things that gives you a hint to guess until another piece of artwork will bring you a little bit closer. And then also for people to discover through roleplay with her, while they also entwine their story with hers. Now, what is it I have decided? Well, I have decided to start writing Emily's story down in a book format as a novel. Now, I intend for it to go from her birth up through her youth, basically all the way through the past up to the present and into the future, her whole story. Whether or not that can fill a whole book, I'm not sure, but I intend to give it a try. I also don't know if it's a story that others would be interested to read. I hope so, but in the end, what I really hope to get out of it is by writing about Emily and her story, her struggles and her strength, that I can bring her back fully and whole in me, and thus also find my strength, which is her again. And actually, after I'm done here, I intend to do some storyboarding. Need to do my exercises, of course, but after that I wanted to do a little storyboarding, and then maybe tomorrow, where I have my hair removal session, maybe then I can start writing something. I don't know, but maybe. At least that's the thoughts that I have right now. So that's why I needed a week off. That's why there's been no videos. But I'm going to try to be back again now. Try to pick myself up, even if I still don't feel great or even good. I'm still fairly hopeless about the future, but I'm hoping that I can find my strength and that something will then come along to pick up this lost puppy and take her home. But that's everything I wanted to say. So I'm going to end it here. that's going to be today's episode. Everything I wanted to say. So, hopefully you will understand why I decided to take a week off, a week of hiatus. I just couldn't deal with it. I still can't. But hopefully I'll find a way to cope. For now though, let's call this episode off. Say thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. And I will see you again next time. Bye bye everybody. Bye.